Well, here it is. I haven't recorded a video in quite a while, but this is Liberty Mark 222, and I've been studying a lot of things that are shocking and mind-numbing. I've been studying the connection between the Nazis and American politics, between the Bush family and just different aspects of our government. Finding out that a lot of things that we think are true are not true. And one of the things that I found out, I was listening to this George Green. He was a School of Mines graduate. I think he said he went to School of Mines in 1957 in geophysics. Well, I went to School of Mines. I graduated in 86 in geological engineering. And so I was like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. The family's into meat packing, and maybe he's related to the Montforts, because I'm from Colorado and I'm familiar with that. He knew about Dick Lamb and Gary Hart and the different politicians in Colorado. Anyway, he said something that really struck me about this New World Order, and what it was is he just made a mention. He said that the moon landing was fake. I thought, you know what, I want to check into this, see what is really true about that, if what he was saying really true. So I just looked it up on the internet, and you know how the internet is, you can find practically anything anymore. There's these articles about how the moon landing was actually fake, and it's not just a little tiny report. It's like a 4-hour report, and basically they're saying is that that we did not go to the moon. And I mean, I've heard that before, and I thought, that's just crazy, come on, but I never really looked at it. I never looked at any kind of evidence. And so I started listening to this video, and I mean, it was obvious. It's obvious what they're saying is true, because they're saying, I mean, just from the photographs, because from their own testimony, they said when they were on the moon, they didn't have any extra lighting. It was just light from the sun. Well, if you look at these photographs, there's lighting in the front. Like, the sun is in the back of the person, and the shadows going toward you. But somehow, there's lighting in the front, which was impossible unless they had extra lighting. And then they're going through, and they're showing how that all these pictures, they must have used studio lighting. There was the picture of him going down the steps, and it was in the shadows, and then they had a still picture, and you could see the color was boot, and then light reflecting off the boot. Well, that had to have been impossible. There was no way, because they didn't have any flash on their camera. There was no artificial lighting. So where did this light come from? It was a studio, obviously. They're showing that they had light coming from two different directions. They had shadows going different directions. They had shadows that were like, the guy was in one place, and then he walked away, and the shadow became longer, which was impossible unless it was a close light source. They're showing how in the mask of the men, they had these huge reflections of light, which if it was from the sun, it would have been just a little tiny light, but these are like it must have been like stadium lights. I mean, they practically light up their whole helmet. They had, what else? The thing about the cross in the photograph. They had these little crosses in the photograph that if they were in the center of the photograph, the cross is supposed to be in the center there, and in these other pictures, it wasn't in the center. So it must have been adjusted or cropped or something like that. They were talking about the mountains in the background, that different pictures, they're closer. The still pictures are closer than the other ones. They had one picture with a rock with a C on it, and then there's a C on the ground. I mean, that is so ridiculous. It's like, oh my gosh, this is just so crazy. Then they go through there's this Van Allen radiation belt, how they're saying that there's no way that they could have survived through that in that kind of spacecraft, that there was not enough protection. There's like, hardly any. You'd have to have like 6 inches or 8 inches of aluminum to protect against that, and they didn't have any kind of protection like that. Then they went through the data for the rockets, and how it's impossible that they could have made it there without that kind of rocket technology. Like the Saturn, I think Saturn 6 or 8 rocket, it had like this black plume coming out underneath it, and the plume underneath, when you look at the regular photos, it was like a bright light. Well, it was obviously not the same rocket. It was, and it probably didn't even get them into the moon there. And they were showing pictures. It's probably a low-level flight, because they had pictures of the astronauts looking out the windows, and it was blue outside. It wasn't black, so it was probably, in our orbit somewhere. It's so ridiculous, that all this stuff would happen, and you're thinking, oh, it's funny too how they were showing how the guys were jumping up and down, and that they had wires on them. You could see the pings of the wires. It flashing the videos and stuff. They didn't get erased somehow. I don't know what the deal was, but they had one guy. He actually got pulled up by the wires. Obviously, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous. This is so pathetic. How in the world could we have such a huge lie? This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's like, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming evidence. It's just so much evidence. This is so obvious, and it really makes me upset. I'm like, wow, our government would be lying about this since, what, 1969? This is what, 69, 79, 89, 99, 2009, 40, what's that? No, 30, 40, 43 years ago? Oh my gosh. 43 years. And you could keep a lie like that going? But I guess they've covered up Kennedy's assassination that long too, so this is just, these guys should all be hung. They should be shot. All the people in the space program that knew about this should be drawn and quartered. It's just, it is absolutely pathetic. It is disgusting. Everybody in the military, the government, NASA, they should all resign. They should be fired on the spot, and all their pensions taken away. I mean, I don't know what. This is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. This whole space program was a big fat lie, and this government's a lie. You don't even know what to believe anymore. You're like, everything these guys say is just a big fat lie. And look at these people that are ruling us. They're trying to kill us by they're poisoning our food, our air, our water. They're bankrupting us. They're getting ready to put us under martial law. They got the FEMA camps for the concentration camps. I mean, I'm thinking, what kind of people are these? Bloodthirsty. They're like, have no concern for humanity. They want to reduce the population from 6 billion to 500 million, like 95%. I mean, who could even think this way? What kind of evil people are these? I'm so disgusted. I'm thinking of like Dietrich Bonhoeffer and how he was talking about cheap grace and how he was one of the few German pastors that fought against Adolf Hitler, and knew right away. He said, this guy is no good. And I'd say most of the German church went along with Adolf Hitler. They had a creed that went along with that, and a prayer for him. It was so sick. The Nazis were just disgusting, sick people. Well, I think it's the same people that are in charge of our government right now are Nazis. Because all these, like for instance, watching this video about the space program, all the top people for the space program came from the Nazi Germany. Like this von Braun, he's the one that developed the V1 and the V2 missiles that were bombing London. I mean, they sent thousands of these missiles into London, and it would like wipe out a whole block of people. And so he's the one that developed it, and we take him and make him the head of our space program. I mean, this is so sick. What kind of people are these? We instead of executing that guy, stringing him up, hanging him for what he did, why we go and hire him to be head of this NASA to go to the Apollo, the moon mission. Well, no wonder it's a bunch of baloney, phony stuff. They got a bunch of liars and disgusting people that were, heading up in the first place, So they got what they deserve. They got the Nazis in charge of it. Well, hope they're happy now, When this whole thing blows up in their face, and people are starting to, people don't believe the government anyway. And when people start figuring out that this whole NASA moon shoot was a baloney, I don't know. People are getting so angry at these people, They're all the same political party. The Democrats, Republican, they're the same thing. They're all bought and sold. They're all paid for by these bankers. These bankers are all Nazis. It's just, it just makes me sick. It makes me absolutely sick. We got a resurrection of Adolf Hitler on our hands. Good night. Bye.